हम तो रखते हैं मुसलमानों का दीन, हम तो रख।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please join me in the silent prayer that Allah may bless this occasion, this event. Dua kar le.
Khuddamul Mursaleen.
Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My very dear Khuddam, I have the pleasure of introducing our honored guest. By the grace of Allah, we are very fortunate to be joined by Respected Abid Khan Sahib today. He serves as the in charge of the central press desk of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat and is press secretary to our Sayyidina Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Talab bin Aziz. Mukarram Abid Khan Sahib is also director of MTA News and oversees the production of This Week with Huzur, the program This Week with Huzur, along with many other programs. Above all else, he is very fortunate to have the opportunity to spend lots of time in the blessed company of Sayyidina Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. May Allah be his helper. By virtue of the time he spends with Sayyidina Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, he also has the blessed opportunity to write many diaries narrating details of the different tours from around the world, which we all enjoy reading. He is the son of Dr. Hamid Ahmad Khan Sahib and respected Sajida Mubashira Khan Sahiba, who were the founding members of the historic Hartlepool Jamaat in UK. Alhamdulillah, we are very grateful to Allah for giving us this blessed opportunity, and I welcome Mukarram Abid Khan Sahib to address us.
First of all, Jazakallah, Respected Amir Sahib, for that very kind introduction, and to Sadr Sahib and to all of the Amla members for inviting me to be here this weekend. At the beginning, I think the title of this program is Sohbat-e-Salihin, and I know that this is a term, but for me personally, I find that uncomfortable, because the righteous, I certainly don't consider myself to be a righteous person, and in this world of ours, if we want to have the Sohbat-e-Salihin, for me there's only one guaranteed person who we can say is truly righteous, whose company we should try to attain as much as possible, and that's Khalifatul Masih. But obviously, as somebody who has the opportunity to spend some time with Huzur, it's also my duty and my responsibility to convey some of those experiences and blessings, and I'll try to do that a little bit later today. But before I will actually hand over, and if anybody has any questions or something, then I'll answer them. Just one thing, because you are all here office bearers, I believe, is the thing that Huzur bar again and again reinforces is the absolute need for humility in all members of the Jamaat, but especially in those who are office bearers. It must never be that once you are given a position of trust in the Jamaat, that you think that I have achieved something, or I have some authority over other people. Every single, whatever position you are, whatever level you're at, Khalifatul Masih's guidance always is that you must keep an understanding of your own status. And remember who you are. Every person knows better than anyone else their own weaknesses. And the worst type of people are those who are hypocrites, those who go around to the other Khuddam or to their fellow brothers or sisters and point out their mistakes or point out their flaws, whilst knowing that they themselves are guilty of many other things, or even sometimes those very things that they are asking other people. So that is something that Khalifatul Masih, time and time again, privately when I've had mulaqats, the point that if Huzur ever expresses any displeasure with any of the Jamaat members, or especially with the office bearers, it invariably is based upon that point, that some form of arrogance has developed, which has led them to considering that they are important. And they are the people who are the cause of some success in the Jamaat. And so, again, I must reiterate the importance of humility, personal humility. And again, we look at Hazur's example. What a beautiful example. He is the one person, as I said, who we know Allah Ta'ala has vouchsafed for him and expressed for him that he is the righteous. In his personal dealings, the way he meets people, the way he interacts with people, with grace, with kindness, always finds time for people, no matter what. He has so many other duties, but when people approach him, Hazur talks to them, he spends time with them, he meets them like a father, like an elder, like a spiritual, of course, like a spiritual guide. Never concerned about his own well-being, or never thinking that I'm too important for this. So this is this example of Khalifa Waqt. Then who are all of we if we think that we are something of value? One other thing, which again, I don't want to make it to labor the point, but we must also as office bearers or people who have some responsibility, what is our primary duty? First of all, of course, it is our own personal self-reformation. But apart from that, after you, it is to bring others closer to the Jamaat. It is, Hazur said on many occasions, certainly he said it to me several times, but I know he said it in other places as well, that one of Hazur's own elders used to say that it's very, very easy to push somebody away from the Jamaat. It's much harder to bring them closer. So you might say something, make a joke or a small taunt or something, and I'm not saying that this is the case here, but I'm just giving as a general example, thinking that this is nothing, but it could have an effect on that person's heart. Something that could have been lingering and then push them a little bit further. So we must never ever fall prey to those. Always show empathy and love and consideration and patience. We should never, what is the difference between us and others? We are following the true Islam, which is a moderate path. Should not be that we turn towards an extremist manner. Yesterday, somebody told me, and again, this is one example, and there's always two sides to a story. But somebody told me that here, when they come to the mosque, if they talk to their wives or their daughters, they're fearful that Khuddamul Ahmadiyya or some of the administration is going to start saying that why were you talking to a woman in the mosque, even though it's their own wife and their own daughter. And that person said to me, he said that I'm actually I've now told my family that we will not speak together if we're at the mosque. Now what kind of Islam is this? That if a father is scared to talk to his daughter at the mosque because he thinks that somebody is going to start addressing him or make some think that they're too liberal or too whatever. So this concept of putting pressure on people, again, I don't know if that's the case here or if this is just one example or somebody got the wrong end of the stick, but as office bearers, we have to be cautious of this. That are we bringing people to the mosque? Are we bringing them closer to Allah Ta'ala, or are we driving them away? Also, and again, I want to turn it back to you. I'm sure if you ask questions, I'll talk in a more happy way and positive way. But here, when and this is again as an example for guests and stuff, that when you receive guests, that the hosting here has been exceptional. Everyone's cared for me, been very, very gracious. But we should never go beyond a limit. And so during the past couple of days, constantly there has been security for me. At first I thought the people who were assigned they just wanted to walk with me to enjoy my company and just to spend some time with me, which I was enjoying. But after 3, 4, 5 times, then I realized that it was a duty that they were assigned to do security And then when I was coming to the mosque, there was a car behind. This is too much. Again, what kind of message is this signaling to the other people? That this is the type of protocol, this is the type of care and love which is for Khalifatul Masih. It's not for me, it's not for anybody else. And so again, the sentiments behind these types of things are good, no doubt. You want to look after a guest, but you always need to know what the appropriate limit is. And make sure a guest is received. If he's at the airport, he has a ride here. There's some good, decent food, has a normal place, a good, nice place to stay. But beyond that, the thing is that's when it starts getting to limits and the impression that it can give to other people. I mean, for me personally, it was very embarrassing. People were opening the doors for me when I'm entering the mosque. People must be looking, thinking that, does he expect that people are going to open the doors for him when he goes to places? Does he think that because he is close to Khalifatul Masih that he is deserving of these things? So these are just some things from my perspective that because you are all here part of the Khuddamul, that you always have to think again and again, that what message am I sending to other people? What message am I sending to the Jamaat members? Am I bringing them closer or am I doing something that can give them the impression that there is different hierarchies and all these type of things, which if we are following Islam in the true spirit, they should never be. We should all be brothers together in the mosque. But anyway, after that 10-minute lecture, I turn it back to any of you, and if anybody has any questions or comments, then I would love to hear them. And if anybody has any personal experiences themselves that they wish to share, then I'd be very happy to hear those as well. Gee, there's somebody there.
Khak just wanted to ask about Huzur's health, and we used to hear that Huzur goes for regular walks and sometimes bikes as well. So just wanted to know, what is Huzur's recent routine?
Sorry, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Amir Mahmood Rana, serving as Muhim Tarbiyyah.
Alhamdulillah, Huzur is well. But we should always pray for Huzur's health. Age is a factor, it's a human factor. When Huzur was appointed Khalifa, he was in his early 50s, now he's in his early 70s. He's, of course, in the 20 years or more that he has served as Khalifa, we all are witness to it, it's relentless. Other people, even if we have some duties in our lives, whether it's our personal lives or whether it's in our Jamaat duties, and we have periods where there's a lot of pressure, we always have this reassurance that, okay, we get through this period, whether it's Jalsa Salana or whether it's something at work, then we'll have a little bit of downtime. You can look, we take holidays, we go for breaks. But imagine that there would be no break, that you would, for year after year after year, day after day after day, and knowing that this is your duty for life. Of course, that's going to take not just a mental toll, but a physical toll. And age, of course, is a factor. So, again, alhamdulillah, Huzur's health is well. And when his routine in the office is the same as it always was, he's always the last to leave. And when we find out the time that Huzur has left the office, then you start feeling very embarrassed that why was Huzur in the office late and we were at home by that time enjoying our food or spending some time with our family. But and in terms of exercise, Huzur doesn't go on regular walks outside of Islamabad, but sometimes every couple of weeks he'll go for a walk in Islamabad, and this is an opportunity for the families there or any people who've come for namaz to then see Huzur spend. He normally distributes chocolates to the children, and so that is, I think, a moment and a few moments that Huzur himself enjoys, and he gets to enjoy that experience. Within his home, I think Huzur does sometimes does some cycling, or he did certainly in the past, and I don't know if it's continuing every day, but certainly the indoor bike type things that Huzur has done. But Jazakallah.
My name is Hassan Shahid, and I'm serving as chairman of Press and Media.
Ji, I know you will.
So firstly, you mentioned that you're happy to be here, and I want to also say similarly, we're happy to host you as well. We had some great experiences from 2016 during Hazur's trip. So my question is that about the early days of when you were first appointed into this role. If you can share, how that came to be, and then some early experiences that you may have had with Hazur during that time.
Jazakallah. I grew up in Hartlepool, as Respected Abid Sahib mentioned, which is a very small coastal town in the northeast of England. It's a very deprived area, and it's a tough area, the schools and stuff. I remember when I was in school, every day there would be people having fights and punching, all these types of stuff, which just when you're growing up, if you see these things, they seem normal. And it's only when you get out of that environment that you realize that it was quite a tough area to bring. But anyway, as Amir Sahib mentioned, that town was unique for the fact that it was the first Jamaat in England, in all of Europe actually, and probably all of the West, where there were more local MDs, as in English people, compared to Pakistanis or Asians. And I'm taking it back, but I will come back to your point. And I grew up in that environment where I saw my parents doing a lot of tabligh and serving the Jamaat. And because of that experience, it used to be that every single day in our house, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, we would have guests. And every night there would be some English people who would be coming, and they would stay to our house till 11, 12 p.m. and just eating with us, talking with us, and spending time. And to the extent that they all seemed like family members. So I had that upbringing. And then during the 1990s and late 80s, when I was in the 80s I was very small, but in the 90s where I can remember better, Khalifatul Masih Rabbi would visit Hartlepool quite regularly. And I saw his example. I saw the way he was just such a beautiful personality, filled with knowledge, filled with grace. And naturally as a child, the attachment to Khilafat grew very, very strong through those experiences. But my parents, both of them, they passed away when I was quite young. And so, but they'd always said to me that you should get a good education. And I remember that my father had said to me a couple of weeks, actually, it was one of my last probably conversations with him, that, or certainly last proper conversations, he said to me, he said that I'm not going to be able to see you as you develop. There'll be certain milestones in your life that every father wants to be part of. He wants to see his child married. He says, I won't be able to be there, and you won't be able to have me there. And he says, above all, you want your child to be attached to the Jamaat, and you want them to just to know that they're doing well. And he said that I won't be there to judge or to see if you are able to do that. But I'm telling you now, and if this is the only thing you ever remember, my one nasiyat to you, instruction to you, is that always stay close to Khilafat, because then I know that everything will be fine in your future. So then in 2003, 2004, I was studying as a lawyer, and as part of that training in 2005, I had to move to London. And when Hazur became Khalifa, I still had those words of my father ringing in my ear, so whenever I could, I would visit Hazur as much as possible. And then when I moved to London, I had this opportunity to spend much more time in close proximity, because I would see Hazur at namaz. I was living close to Masjid Fazal, and then also sometimes I would see Hazur in evenings, sometimes in family gatherings. And again, I got to spend that time with Hazur and to learn from him, but in a very informal way. But all that time, I think that attachment to Khilafat, which we need to instill in and try to instill in all our youth, was developing and becoming stronger. I did Waqf. I applied for Waqf then in 2006, and the reason is that I started working as a lawyer, and I knew quite quickly that I wasn't cut out for it. I wasn't getting any job satisfaction. The 2 times I appeared in court, I lost the case badly. And and so I knew that this isn't going to be the life that is going to give me satisfaction and happiness. And so then I prayed and I thought about it, and there wasn't really a trend then. This is going back 17, 18 years for young people in the West to do waqf. Now, mashallah, because of Jamia and because of the Waqf-e-Nau scheme reaching its, like I was born before the Waqf-e-Nau scheme, but now it's become much more common. But at that time, it was very rare. I didn't know of any young people at the time, hardly, who had been grown up in the West, but then requested to do waqf. But anyway, over time, I started feeling that I need to do something more with my life. And so after prayers and stuff, I wrote to Hazur and with my desire to do waqf. And this is 2006. Hazur wrote back, I still remember just saying, Jazakallah, Allah Mubarak kare, on the letter. And I read this and I was really confused because I was like, am I waqf? Am I not a waqf? Did Hazur accept it? Did he not accept it? And so then obviously I asked private secretary and whatever, and they weren't clear either. But then the next time I met Hazur himself, he said कि अभी जो कर रहे हो करते जाओ, जब ज़रूरत होगी फिर हम बुलाएंगे. That keep doing what you're doing, and then when we need you, then we'll call you. So then 7, 8, 9, 10 months passed. The middle of 2007, I still remember that one day Majid Sahib, additional Vakil Tabshir, he called me and he says, you need to come to the office, you need to sign something. So I went and I didn't know why he was calling me, but like obviously in my mind I knew the background. I thought maybe it might be something to do with my waqf. And he just said, ye form hai, isko sign kar lo. So I signed it. And then afterwards, I still remember it now as well. I said to him, Majid, what did I sign? And he said, it's the ye waqf ka form. And then he said to me, you better read it now, you've signed it. So then I read it. And then he said, Hazur's appointed you to the press and media office. And again, I was very confused in the sense that I didn't know that the Jamaat had a press and media office, what it did, anything like that. But anyway, he said that there's going to be an elder whose name was Malik Khalil Sahib, and he's also been appointed. He's going to be the in charge, and you're going to be his staff member. And also, Hazur is sending you to Qadian for 3 months. Actually, it was meant to be for 6 months, but it turned out to be 3 months because of visa. But he said Hazur's going to send you to Qadian, and you're going to get training there, and then you're going to come back. So I went to Qadian in that 2007 period. My wife's grandfather had just passed away. He was from Qadian as well. And so she came with me. She spent time, Mia Wasim Saab, and then so she spent time with her grandmother. And then whilst I was away, Malik Khalil Saab, unfortunately, he was quite elderly. He passed away. And so I returned to London after 3 months, and I started going back to the office where I just started before the trip, and I didn't really know again what I was doing, but I was just used to spend my days looking through different files and trying to understand what the office did. And then one day I got a letter from, and I think I was 23, 24 probably at the time, and I got the letter saying that from Tabshir, saying that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih has appointed you as the in charge of this office. And I read that 5, 6, 7 times and thought there's definitely some mistake here. This can't be. And I just put the letter in my drawer, and I just didn't think about it again. I didn't mention it to my home. I didn't tell anybody. I just continued the way I was continuing it, and just thought that there's some mistake here or something. Then about a month later, I think a month had passed, and I was continuing with that routine. I got a call from Private Secretary Sahib, Hazur's calling you. So you should come and meet him. I think probably he's given me time for the next day. So the next morning I went for mulaqat, and it was all these daftari mulaqats were taking place, and I didn't really know what was happening. Until then, I'd only ever had the experience of a family mulaqat, which used to happen in the evenings. And when it came to my turn, Hazur, I walked into the office, and Hazur, first of all, he said, "Kya lekar aaye ho?" And so he said, what did you bring? And I said, "Hazur, I didn't bring anything." And I said, "Hazur, I got a message that you were calling me, so I came." So then Hazur looked a little bit surprised. I think he'd expected probably that I must have received the letter, I must have made some plans or something, and now I was coming to see him. And so then I still, again, sometimes you remember strange things. I remember seeing Hazur's reaction and thinking, he's thinking about sending me back out then if I've got nothing. But then I think he had mercy on me, that he thought that he's come in for his first mulaqat, and now if I send him out after 10 seconds, people outside are going to be thinking, "Pata nahi iske saath kya hua hai." So then Hazur, instead, he just paused, and then he started continuing his work, and he just let me sit there for 8-10 minutes, and I was just sitting there in silence. And then at the end, Hazur said, "You should make a plan for your office, and these are and then he explained some of the tasks, that these are the first things you should start with, and then come back to me and come and see me regularly, and then get guidance, and this is how the process works." And then he said to me, he said that whenever you have any question, don't ask anybody else. Kisi se nahi aur se nahi puchna, sirf mere se puchna hai, that only ask me. And that was such a beautiful, it's so gracious, but also it was just so fundamental to my personal training that I had that opportunity. And then for that first 2-3 years, I felt that no matter was too small. I would get an email in the office, and it might just be a routine email, and I would take it to the mulaqat, and I would say, "Hazur, I received this email from such and such person." And never once did Hazur say, "Why are you bringing this to me? You can sort out yourself." He would say, "Acha ye aaya hai, acha iska jawab ye dena hai." Acha, you respond like this, and literally teaching me how to write these reply emails. And he was like, somebody's holding your hand and taking you step by step by step. Then as a few months passed, the one thing also during that time is that I was a very young person. Obviously, most of the people in the Jamaat offices, especially the senior offices, are people much older than me, people who I'd been seeing since a child. So it was very intimidating for me as an individual to now be dealing with them and to speaking to them. And they were just like, obviously, your elders. But sometimes if there was some issue, and I could sense as well sometimes that they were thinking, where's he coming from? Why is he here? Why is he involved? And so sometimes you would get that little bit of resistance, and so sometimes I would mention some comment or some email that I've received about something, and then Hazur would dictate, and he said that this is what you should respond to them. And sometimes the language would be quite firm in the sense that maintaining my position that this is what should happen. And I remember I used to tremble, but because Hazur used to say कि यही लिखना है, लेकिन तुमने अपने तरफ से लिखना है, ये नहीं कहना कि Hazur ने कहा है. Don't say that Hazur has said it. You write it. And at that time, I used to wish that Hazur would say that you write that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih has instructed, so that at least obviously it's much easier. But if I'm saying that you should do this, you should do this, who am I to say it? But again, Hazur was establishing that in the Jamaat, it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. It's the respect of the office, it's respect of the Jamaat's Nizam. That if Hazur has appointed somebody, then obviously then you follow the Nizam. But then also, over time, that gave me, it taught me as well a lot about how to deal with people. But it's not that Hazur would say that you should give harsh emails or anything like that, but it's just where you need to make a stand for the betterment of the Jamaat. Then you should have the courage to do so. So that Sorry, you started with a much shorter question, but that was the way that Hazur guided me. And one other thing I should actually point out since we're here is that before I did Waqf, Alhamdulillah, my relationship with Hazur was a very informal to some extent, that I was just a young boy and we had some links as in terms of family terms as well. So whenever I would see Hazur, he would always make some joke or some comment and show a lot of love. And when I would sometimes say things, this is before I did Waqf, which sometimes Hazur would enjoy, some light comments. I remember these experiences very much. But when I did Waqf and I started in the office, for that first year and a half, I felt very clearly a change. Where Hazur was guiding me on all these points, that sense of the hasi mazak, the laughing and joking, that was cut quite considerably during that period. And I used to sometimes go home and think that, have I done something wrong? Before I did Waqf, Hazur was so kind and gracious and loving. But now, although I'm getting the guidance for my work, in terms of that personal thing, it seems to have become much less. And I wanted to do this to become closer to Hazur. And so sometimes I used to have this confusion and worry. And I think this lasted about a year and a half, perhaps 2 years. And then after that, gradually, that old style of that love and the Hazur's light comments sometimes and having that personal, that was started again. And much more than probably than ever before, with the grace of Allah. And when I reflect on that, I also realize that there was wisdom in that.
There was?
Wisdom. And the wisdom was that before Hazur treated me like you treat any MD, as a young person, and he would, with great love and affection. But when I started working in the Jamaat, then Hazur was sending me a message as well, that now you have to now mature as well. And you have to now realize that if I've given you some responsibilities, then you have to take them very seriously. And that was part of the training. And in UK Jamia, since then, there's been quite a few Jamia students who from time to time, who throughout Jamia, they had this very, not informal is the wrong word, but a loving relationship where Hazur would laugh and joke with them. And then when they came to their first posting, sometimes they would come to me and say that we're worried, have we done something wrong? Because since we've started in the office, it seems to have changed slightly, and Hazur's becoming a little bit more stricter. There's less of that thing. And then I always say to them as well that this is part of the training. And so again, you have no expectations, but whatever way Hazur deals with you, whatever way he interacts with you, consider it a blessing and seek to learn from it. And then you can, inshallah, move forward. And then you will see that over time, the blessings and the love of Khilafat will always be there and will always be with you. Jazakallah. Oh, sorry. Jazakallah. Rabbi Sahib, kya haal hai? Assalamu alaikum. Are you still in, is it Quebec?
Yes.
First of all, Jazakallah, it's wonderful to be here, and I want to ask a question regarding the prayers of Hazur and especially for us office bearers. We should write often to Hazur to seek prayers. Because you had such a close relationship with Hazur and Wahidahullah, if you can let us know the importance of having that relationship of letters and praying, and how those prayers get affected positively.
Thank you. Jazakallah. Yeah, I mean, I would say to every office bearer, every MD, that build that relationship with Hazur. And if you're living far away, you can't do it through regular physical meetings, but you most certainly can through letters. And I've always seen, and this is my experience over the past 15, 16 years, that those people who regularly write to Hazur remembers them, and he feels an attachment to them. And Hazur mentioned this in a virtual mulaqat perhaps a year or two ago as well, that he has love for all MDs, of course, and very, very deep MDs, but those who make a special effort. It's a natural human phenomenon that then if somebody is coming towards you, then you are going to feel an attraction and a warmth and a love towards them. And so, again, especially when you're younger, but also, I mean, throughout, there's no reason, whatever issues you have, whatever concerns you have, you should share them with Hazur. Whether you get a reply directly to that point that you raised or not, rest assured that Hazur is understanding and feeling and seeing and praying for you. And then and that attachment and that bond is growing stronger. And you'll find the blessings of that in your work day to day. Yes, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of like specific examples, but the thing is that it's again and again, you always see that those who write to Hazur directly and have that close bond with them, then they tend to do better in their duties, they tend to do better in their work, and they obviously, where they have some parshani and stuff, Hazur guides them.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Anik Ahmed. I'm a business. My question is that Huzur and Mirlabi Zalpur talked about Sayyid Talib Sahib Shahid in a very loving way. So he also worked in your office. So can you please also mention some of his great qualities?
Jazakallah. Talib is a very beautiful, special person. Hazur spoke about him, and so I'm sure all of you must have heard that khutbah. But just as a background, my eldest sister, her eldest son was Talib. And I was his mamu, but there wasn't a huge age difference. He was about 6.5 years younger than me. So after about, in the early 90s or mid-90s, they came and they were living abroad, but then their family moved to Hartlepool, and they lived with us for some time. And and then also when my parents passed away, Talib and his family moved in because I was still quite young, and they looked after me as well as I was completing my studies. So I had this very close relationship from childhood with Talib. One thing from childhood, he had this quality that one of his qualities was that from childhood, you could always see he had this immense love for Khilafat. And I think, but again, I don't need to speak so much about that because Hazur's already spoken about the taluk he had with Khilafat. But there were other qualities that he would have as which perhaps are not as well known. One is that we have, like every families, they have extended relatives and then further extended relatives, and it goes on and on. And some people, probably like myself, are the type that you don't spend so much time getting to check in with the relatives, and just on the day-to-day life, who you are with, you're focused on that. But Talib had this quality that he would check in with almost all members of his family from time to time. And no matter how remote, how distant, he would send them a message, he would call them just to say that you're my cousin, and I know we haven't seen each other for a few years, but I just wanted to see if you're well. With his elders, he would do that as well. With his aunts, his uncles, they were spread across the world, but afterwards they would always tell me as well that Talib was very unique, that out of all our nephews and nieces, he was the only one who would regularly call us and just to find out if we are well, if there's anything. So he had that. He had an immense regard for fulfilling the responsibilities of his family. So that was his good quality. He had a really wonderful sense of humor. Like again, sometimes he would say things, and I would say, "Talib, you can't say that." But the thing is, that was just part of his innocence as well. And then he would then talk and laugh and joke about that. But the reason people liked him, and the reason people were drawn to him, was that there was a purity, that there was no politics. If he was talking to the most senior person, whether in the Jamaat or outside the thing, he would talk to him kind of in the same way he would talk to a 10-year-old boy who was with him. He was just very simple and sada in that way. But that was a reflection of his purity. That he would approach sometimes when we were making MTA documentaries, we would need to involve some very senior people of Jamaat in different countries, in Rabba in Pakistan, and he would say that or I just messaged them and I said, oh, you need to help us. And I would say to him that, again, I spoke to you about protocol earlier, but even I was of the sense that there should be a little bit of protocol, that we should at least email them or contact them. But his style was just, oh, I just WhatsApp them and they're on board now and stuff. So that was his style. But he used to get the job done. And these documentaries he made, again, they were outstanding. And I remember the first documentary, like feature documentary he made, which was 4 Days Without a Shepherd, which was about the election of the 5th Khalifa in 2003. And one day, again, we were just sitting in the office, and he said to me that I have a ambition or a desire to make a documentary about that period of the 5th Khilafat. And I was just listening. I was like, sounds like a good idea. Look into it and let me know what and then what you need, and then we can try and progress this. And then he didn't speak to me again for about 8 or 10 months about that. And I was busy with other things, and so it kind of fell off my radar. And then about 8-9 months later, or however long it was, he said, oh, do you remember that documentary that I was working on? I've got something to show you. And then he reminded me what the documentary was, and he showed me a first draft of it. And I remember just sitting there, and I was stunned. I was like, I don't think I've seen a documentary in the Jamaat which has like made me so emotional, so invested. There were some like things that needed to be changed or altered, but as a rough cut, I remember feeling that I don't know if this is just me, but this is something really impactful. And then obviously I got more invested in it, and then we would spend the next few weeks going back and forth on some of the changes and those types of things. And there were things that is this appropriate to include, not to include? And then finally we had a draft or a version to show Hazur. And we didn't have a title. I remember that he'd come up with 4 days without 4 days without Khilafat. That was the initial one. And I didn't like that name. And I said to him, it makes it like obviously during those days there was no Khalifatul Masih elected, but it sounds like there was a gap in the chain of Khilafat. So that was my reservation. So I said that I'm not sure about that name. So anyway, I said I'll take it to in Mulaqat and seek Hazur's guidance. So I took the DVD, and I mentioned to Hazur that Hazur, we produced this documentary, and it's about the election of Khilafat. And Hazur was busy, but he said, okay, put the DVD in, 2 minute dekh leta hu, I'll get a feel, and then I'll give you some feedback. And Hazur was continuing his work, and it played from the beginning. And as it was playing, after 2 or 3 minutes of just listening, Hazur looked up as well. And I think the way it grabbed my attention a little bit, also it grabbed Hazur's attention. That it wasn't something routine, it was something of genuine interest. And then Hazur started watching it, and for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, Hazur was watching it, and very intently. And then Hazur returned to his work after 10 or 15 minutes, but he was still listening. And we got through the whole documentary, which was about 45 minutes. And Hazur, I can't remember the exact comment, but Hazur expressed that achhi hai, and isko dikhani chahiye MTA pe, that you should show it on MTA. And then I said Hazur, we don't know what to call it. I said that Taleh had this suggestion of 4 days without Khilafat, and I said that I had some reservation, and Hazur agreed. He said, okay, it doesn't sound quite right. So then Hazur said, in one of the interviews in the documentary, and I had missed this, but one of the people had said that when Khalifatul Masih was elected, it felt like we had our shepherd back. So Hazur had been listening very intently, and he said, "Ke usne shepherd ka lafz ye tha, you should call it 4 days without a shepherd." And again, that's like some of the genius that you see in Khilafat, that they just pick things and it's just make things. And I was like stunned as well. I was like, it is beautiful. And I went out of the office, and I remember I called Taleh, And I said to him, I said that Hazur's watched your documentary, and he was like, how much did he watch? 2 minutes, 3 minutes? I said, he watched the whole thing, and he was completely stunned. And I said that Hazur has even like given a name, and he was like, what is it? I said, 4 days without a shepherd. And on the phone, I still remember that Talib started crying just with happiness. Like, this is the first thing, that his first documentary. And he was, and then Alhamdulillah, when something has the blessings of Khilafat, then we played it on MTA, and it was extremely popular and well received. And we got a lot of feedback. Hazur received a lot of feedback, and Hazur then encouraged Talib a lot to continue to make documentaries. And then after that, the procedure would always stay the same, that he would talk to me, say that I've got this idea, and then he would go away for 6 months, 5 months. Like, he would do his day-to-day work, but on that project, I didn't ask him, he didn't ask me, because I knew that this is how it worked. And then after 5 or 6 months, he would come to me, and on one of the documentaries, I remember that we had to do a lot of revisions after that period, and he accepted that. Again, that the ataat was there always, that there was, I said that in this, there were some things which are issues I had with it, and I said that these need changing quite significantly. And so even though he'd spent those 6 months, then when he got the instruction that these need changing, then happily and gladly, or I don't know happily, but but he changed them. And that was the way. And even the last documentary he made, which was about Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmed, that again, that was, he handed that to me a few weeks before his shahadat, the DVD. And I still remember that I took it to Hazur, and Hazur told me at the time to leave it on his desk. And he said, कि जब time होगा फिर मैं देखूंगा, फिर मैं तुम्हें feedback दूंगा. That I'll give you feedback when I'll review it when I get a chance. But obviously, that was a busy period of Jalsa, so Hazur didn't have a chance. And then in August, it was Talib's shahadat. And I still remember the day after the shahadat, I went to see Hazur and had mulaqat, and then Hazur saw the DVD, and he said, कि ये ताले की है ना? And I said, yes, Hazur, it's Talib's documentary. And he said, put it in. And then Hazur watched it, and then again, he watched the whole thing, and then he said, you must play this, and Hazur appreciated it. And then that was kind of like something very emotional for us as well, that after his shahadat, there was still at least one fresh documentary of his that went out on MTA with his narration. Jazakallah. Sahib, I think I've been talking too much and too long.
My name is Tosif Ahmed, and I'm serving as chairman of social media this year. In August 2020, I think we had the first virtual mulaqat, the first ever virtual mulaqat, which was with Canadian Fall. We had a lot of excitement here as well, and so just wanted to, we read a little bit in your diary as well about that. So maybe if you can explain what was the feelings over there, how did this idea came about, and
that COVID was a very tough period, especially the early months, because the Jamaat had this routine. Everybody would come to offer prayers behind Hazur, spend time with Hazur, have mulaqats with Hazur. There was an increasing trend of people, Jamaats, sending delegations from different countries to meet Hazur, and then suddenly everything stopped. And obviously you all know that even khutbah, there was nobody in the mosque hardly apart from the 1 or 2 people. And the virtual mulaqats, the Hazur's family mulaqats, daftari mulaqats, they all stopped for a period. And so it was a period of very intense sadness, uncertainty, anxiousness. And then after a few days, then Hazur started having his daftari mulaqats on the phone. And he would call, basically people would make the request in the same way, and that then Hazur would call them when at certain slots in the same way. So that side of it was continuing, but there was definitely a void, an absence, in terms of the general MDs in other countries especially, who weren't able to come and see Hazur. So I can't recall at the time, but I think it was Munir Odisab, but it may have been somebody else. But then I think in one of his mulaqats, he mentioned to Hazur that there's this possibility of doing virtual. I think if I remember correctly, he told me that there was a short period or some period where Hazur didn't give an answer, but then after a few more weeks had passed, then Hazur asked further details, and then Hazur instructed that let's go ahead and test it, and then the mulaqat that you mentioned with the Atfal from Canada was arranged. And I remember being in the room for that mulaqat, and even before the mulaqats happened, I was talking to Munir Odisab, and we were talking amongst ourselves that this is a once-in-a-lifetime type opportunity. If it goes well, this could be a trend for the next 50 years, 100 years, that Jamaats will have this opportunity. But if it goes badly, or there's like the network flops, Hazur's probably going to say, "Ke isko chhod do, it's just wasting my time." So we were really tense and nervous and anxious. And then until the moment, like Hazur said, "Chalo on kar do." And then that moment, it was just so special that as soon as the mulaqat started, you could see the happiness in Hazur's face that after a long time, he was seeing someone new and some new children at Atfal, because Hazur had been in Islamabad, and the happiness on Hazur's face and the happiness of and it just worked seamlessly that day. And I think that was Allah Ta'ala's special help. Some days afterwards, subsequently, there have been times when the connection is broke for a few minutes or there's been some issues, but that day it worked perfectly. And the mulaqat was interesting, and Hazur at the end of it, like throughout it, he was smiling. And then at the end of it, Hazur smiled, and then he just looked at me at the end, and he said, "Kaisa hua?" Like, how did Hazur? It was beautiful, wonderful, and you could tell that Hazur was happy. And then that's when more mulaqats were quickly arranged, especially during that period where the lockdowns were still imposed. Then it was, mashallah, such a huge blessing. And now they still go on, but now, of course, now we have both sides of the blessing, that now I think your Amla is visiting as well, and other Amlas have met Hazur, and people are coming. But at the same time, the virtual mulaqats are also continuing alongside it for those places where Hazur can't visit or their people can't come. So yeah, I think that was, again, I don't think without COVID that would have happened, certainly not in this period. So everything has a purpose and some blessings, and maybe that was one of the things that to be able to spread the message of Khilafat to an even wider degree, we had to experience that.
So Reza serving as Masih. I just had a quick question with regards to Khalifatul Masih Abid beautifully narrated an experience that your mother had with the existence of Allah in terms of what she faced when she was ill. So I was wondering if you'd kindly share that.
I know the incident you're referring to, and I don't want to. I mean, I wasn't born at the time; it was before my birth. And I've heard the story, and I heard Khalifatul Masih Rabi's, but Khalifatul Masih Rabi explained it in a lot of detail. So I don't want to be mistaken in the way. But my understanding of the incident is that my mother, in the late 70s, or she became unwell. She was quite young, about 30. She got cancer, and then in about 1981, she developed cancer again, and it was quite critical, quite severe. At the time, she was in her early 30s, and basically it got to the point that doctors had given up hope that she would recover. And she was in this induced state of coma, something like along those lines, in the hospital. And when she woke up, then she narrated that whilst I was in that state, I had this experience that Allah was talking to me, and that Allah had said to her that now is the time for the end of your life, or that I'm calling you back to me, something along those lines. And during that conversation, she said that no, I've got 3 young children at home. I'm too young to, I can't leave them. And but then in that conversation, there was more details, which if anyone's interested, they should listen to the clip of Khalifatul Masih Rabi. But one of the things that was the conclusion that Allah said to her in this whatever state it was, that okay, I'll let you go back, but there'll be 2 things that you will will show you that this wasn't just an ordinary dream, but it was actually a manifestation of Allah's will. And one is that when you come out of this coma or this period, you will face the most intense, excruciating pain, the type of pain that you've never felt before. And the other thing is that you will have another child. So when I guess she regained consciousness, and my father, and this is more from what my family have told me, rather than the clip of Khalifatul Masih, but she regained consciousness, and she was in excruciating pain for some time, and she said that as soon as she had that excruciating pain, this whole whatever happened came back to her. And then she remembered the second point about having another child. And so my father, who came in to see and was just like, was so glad, I guess, and relieved that she was alive, she said to him, "We're going to have another child." And I think he thought like the drugs had got to her. And so he was like, "Tika, tika." But anyway, then when she regained hosh and consciousness and stuff, I think she must have narrated this story to him. And then in that clip that you mentioned of Khalifatul Masih, my elder sister was sitting there, and Hazur asked her that, and then you had a son, and his name was Abid. So it was then after that I was born, and which was about a year later in December 1982. So it was pre-existing me, so I'm not up to, but that's the story as far as I know it.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mansoor Azim, serving as Mohammed Sadaqah Sir. Khan Sahib, Respected Abid Khan Sahib, I know that you get to meet Hazur and Raidat Ibn Aziz as a press secretary, and you discuss a lot of events, what's happening in the world, for example, in terms of news and to release the press releases that you release as well. So when you meet Hazur you have mentioned a lot of times that Hazur is already aware of the conflicts, like for example the Middle East and a lot. So in this regard, I want to ask that how Hazur, in his busy routine schedule, how he follows the news and what's happening in the world, and what kind of guidance, if you could please share.
One thing is that, yes, I give media briefings, reports, updates to Hazur on a regular basis. And just in terms of reporting, one thing which I think applies for office bearers as well is that you have to be sure as much as possible that you're accurate when you're presenting any report to Khalifatul Masih. I mean, I always go with the assumption, if I'm presenting any report to Hazur, that especially if it's a media related or something like that, that this could be something that Hazur relies on or refers when he's giving a speech or if he's meeting somebody. So you have to, as much as possible, make sure you've gone through that process to make sure it's as accurate and you're sure of it. And if there's any doubt, then you let Hazur know that there's some doubt, but this is what we think is happening or what's being reported. And I think that's from a Jamaat perspective as well, that sometimes we have a tendency to try and show best case scenario. But we should give as accurate a picture as we can, so that then Hazur can guide and give instructions on it. And then he knows also what the state of the Jamaat is or what the state of the world is. But in terms of the world news, for sure, you're very right that many times I will present a report to Hazur and he will say, "Iska mujhe pata hai," and he'll give additional information. It happened last week as well that I mentioned something about Gaza, and I think I said I just rounded up about 25,000, how many the death toll was, and Hazur then added like the exact number. He's like, "No, actually, I just checked it on my phone. It's 700 and whatever." And then, but also just generally, people send Hazur news reports or stories of interest. That's the beauty of the Jamaat. That of course there's some people responsible, but then every MD has a right to write to Hazur and send their analysis or their views, which some people do, especially who are in those fields. And then the other thing that there's no doubt that Allah Ta'ala blesses the time of Khalifatul Masih a great deal. And whenever he has the chance, perhaps sometimes in his home, sometimes maybe less so in his office, but I think at home sometimes Hazur will watch the news. And one thing that Hazur tells me as well and instructs me is that we shouldn't just rely on the Western mainstream media. We should make sure that we're looking at Eastern media, Far Eastern media, African media, and then you get a better understanding of the world, because obviously then everyone's got their own biases, so you should be able to look at everything. And Hazur himself, I know, when he does have time to watch the news, he'll watch 3 or 4 or 5 different channels. He's mentioned to me recently during this Gaza that he thinks that Al Jazeera has given pretty good coverage compared to some of the other ones. And after Hazur said that, I started watching it more as well, and you could definitely notice a difference. So yes, again, the point is that Hazur's so much more efficient than us. That's one of the other things that you'll find out, that even the dark that Hazur gets, apart from the hundreds, if not thousands, of family letters he gets, personal letters, he gets hundreds of Daftari Dark every day. And invariably, by the next day, he's gone through it all, written down instructions or given instructions, and the dark is given back to whoever the office is or the individual is. Whereas if we get like 1 or 2 documents to review, probably it will take us a week or something. So again, Hazur's, Allah Ta'ala has given him this special ability, there's no doubt. And again, it's also about, I think, the intention. Hazur's intention and desire is to devote every single moment that he has to service the Jamaat. That's his priority. Whereas the rest of us, sometimes we get clouded in our own personal things.
My name is Muhammad Ijaz Arshad, and I'm serving as the regional guide for Eastern Recovery region. Jazakallah, Respected Abid Khan Sahib, for joining us here in Canada. We'd love to have you. My question is about way back in the Urdu class days. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih came to Khuddamul with the Urdu class, and he brought Hazrat Khalifatul Masih with him. I was wondering if you could just shed some stories about Hazrat Khalifatul interaction with Khalifatul Masih at that time, and your personal interaction with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih before Khilafat.
It was actually 2 separate trips. There was one trip where there was in 1997, Hazur actually took the Urdu class to Holland, and they went, and there was about 100. I was on the trip as well, and for about a week we were with the Khalifatul Masih in Holland, but there was about 10 or 11 or 12 members of the Urdu class who, because they didn't have visa, they couldn't come to Holland. So whilst we were in Holland, I remember Khalifatul Masih he said that because they couldn't come here, I'm going to take them for an Urdu class to Hartlepool. So those who were left over, plus a few others, so I think there was about 20 members of the Urdu class, they came with Khalifatul Masih and they stayed at our house in Hartlepool for 2 or 3 days. And that was a very fun experience as well, and blessed experience. But the visit of Khalifatul Masih Khamis, that was in 1997 also, but it was a separate visit. And that was after UK Jalsa, that year, Hazur's Khalifatul Masih Rabi's had some of his cousins who were elders of the Jamaat who were visiting for the Jalsa. One of them was Hazrat Mirza Mansoor Ahmad, the father of Hazur. And the other one was Hazrat Mirza Muzaffar Ahmad Sahib, who was the Amir Sahib in USA for a long time. And they both came for UK Jalsa as Hazur's guests. So then when after the Jalsa, Hazur wanted to take them for some excursion. And so he took them to his plan, I think at the time, if I remember correctly, the plan was that they were going to go to the Lake District for 2 or 3 days and then visit Hartlepool for 1 night and then go back to London. But when Hazur got to the Lake District, I think the accommodation, it wasn't suitable. There was too many people, which had been arranged by locally. So Hazur Khalifatul Masih said, we're going to go straight to Hartlepool and we'll spend 3-4 days there. So that was, at that time, it was very special for us as a family. And I remember my father on the first night of the visit, I still remember this, him telling me the next day, he said, I didn't sleep at all last night, not even for a minute. And he said the reason is that the promised Messiah had 3 sons from his second wife, Hazrat Amma Jan, and their representatives are all here. Khalifatul Masih Rabe is the obviously the son of Hazrat Muslim Maud. Hazrat Mirza Mansoor Ahmad is the son of Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad, and Hazrat Mirza Muzaffar Ahmad was the son of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad. And he said just that fact that those all three are represented today in my house meant I couldn't sleep. But I did notice, of course, as a family, our focus was on Khalifatul Masih Rabe and making sure, especially the elder guests we'd brought, everything was comfortable for them. But I did, at that time, remember that Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih Khamis, was traveling, and he was coming with his father, and Hazur obviously had brought him along as well. And it was the first time I ever saw him, and I had just seeing the way he would always stay in the background. We went for a walk on the beach with Khalifatul Masih Rabe. We would have fish and chips, and Hazur was there, Khalifatul Masih Khamis, but he would always stay in the back. And I, like, just as a 12, 13-year-old boy, this was one of the things I noticed and I picked up on and I felt. Then I remember that if Hazur Khalifatul Masih Khamis, Rabe was eating at the dinner table, Hazur would never come himself, Khalifa Khamis. If he got, but then Khalifatul Masih Rabe would call him and say, tell him to come, and then he would come. And at the dinner table, I remember observing, again, I was serving, helping to serve, but I would always see that he would keep his eyes down. He would only speak if Hazur directly addressed to him. So that level of respect and love for Khilafat was very evident. And also was Hazur's humility. Again, I said our focus was on making sure that Khalifatul Masih Rabe was comfortable, and also that the elder Buzurgan were comfortable. And Hazrat Mirza Mansoor Ahmad Sahib, Hazur's father, he couldn't walk up steps by then. He was in his late 80s. And so we'd arranged for a bed in one of the rooms downstairs. We brought the bed from upstairs, we'd arranged it. And then he slept on that bed, and throughout those 3-4 nights, Hazur would sleep on the floor. And Hazur would use because we only had 2 or 3 bathrooms, we had a bathroom outside which was for the kafla, for the staff, the security. And even though I'm sure we must have offered Hazur to use the upstairs bathrooms which were being used by Hazur's family, Hazur would always go to the outside bathroom where the kafla members were. And that's where he would do his ablutions, where he would do his brush his teeth or have a shower and stuff. And all of these things, like, again, I would had a impact on me as a child. And I remember after that, Hazur, obviously Hazur returned to Rabwa. There was something that I had an attraction to the way I saw Hazur's personality. I started writing letters to Hazur just as a 14, 15-year-old in Rabwa. And even though I didn't really know him, I'd only seen him on that trip. And he was Nazir Allah soon after he became Nazir Allah. But even at that time, Hazur would, all the way from Pakistan, he would write back to me. And I think it's probably, I sent probably 5 or 6 letters, and I think I got replies to about 3. And I remember on the last one, Hazur said that he wrote back saying, I apologize because I didn't respond to your last 2 letters, and I'm responding to them all with this letter now. And so even that sense of humility, I mean, I was a 13, 14-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy, and on the other side, he was the Nazir Allah at that time. But just to have that sense of respect and humility and keeping oneself to the ground, it was something that, so that when Hazur becomes Khalifa, and then you see later on, it's nice to have that personal reflection of before. And I know all the people, and you must have heard this as well, when people talk on MTA or when they come to events like this, that Hazur was always the last person who would give a speech, the last person who would want to address. He would want to stay in the background as much as possible.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rashid Ahmed. I'm currently serving as a regional guide for Delhi region. Respected Abid Sahib, your diary is very inspiring, and like so many good stories in your diary. We haven't seen recent any inspiring stories, so can you please tell us like when we will be receiving the new edition?
Wait, it's a long wait.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I apologize for that actually. You get busy with other things, some things, and so I haven't written. Bit, please. And I should have written, and I had some notes, but I never formalized them recently. And then sometimes you get to a point where something gets so delayed that then you feel just embarrassed to even to go with it. But I do hope to write in the near future, and inshallah, whenever it's ready, I'll send it to you guys. Jazakallah, everyone. This was it was a very nice sitting, and nice to see you all. And I just please remember me and my family and in your prayers, and our team in the UK, the press team, that we can fulfill our duties. That's the fear and that we always have, that no matter that you don't in any way come short or disappoint Hazur or fail to fulfill your duty. So please remember us in your prayers as well. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. We'll be sharing this video with all the audience as well, inshallah. That will be coming to YouTube as well. So our other Khuddam will benefit. At the beginning, Respected Abid Khan Sahib have highlighted some issues, and we must work on that. And the one thing that Respected Abid Khan Sahib highlighted, that there was a person who got affected. He felt that maybe a mummy or anyone, because of those duty members, he doesn't feel comfortable to even meet their family members. So because that was from the Mummy team, I am not sure, but still, as Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, I do apologize from that member as well, because this will go out, so they should know that we apologize for that as well. And if this is not a policy of any auxiliary or Jamaat, so they should feel comfortable. And if they have any other concern as well, they should reach out to us as soon as possible so we can mitigate those things. So, but please remember us in your prayers. And also at the end, Jazakallah to our honored guest, so for taking that much time and also answering that many questions. So Jazakallah.
Thank you, everyone. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.